Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe, and welcome back to the channel. I think I've got a really fun one for you today because as we were cleaning up and setting up our lives in Pennsylvania in my parents' basement, I stumbled upon some of my old artifacts from my middle school and high school years, and among the many, many treasured, cherished memories I found, one stood out to me as great fodder for a video, and that was my old blacklight. Now, many of you, like me, probably encountered blacklight frequently as a child, whether it was at the local 10-pin alley for glow bowling, or you went to see a puppet show at the theater like the one in Prague, where blacklight is used to bring neon characters to life and tell a story. Or what is probably much more likely is that many of you had blacklight posters in your rooms, and you'd come home from school, long day of hitting the books, and you go in there, you turn on some Pink Floyd, and you just turn the world off for a few hours. And look, I've been there. I get it. What you may not realize is that ultraviolet light is actually a really useful tool when it comes to dating or evaluating an instrument for purchase or repair. Today, I'd like to show you some of the things that you can learn by viewing an instrument under ultraviolet light using some of my very own guitars as test subjects. But to do that, we're going to have to turn the lights off. So, without further ado, aha! That's more like it. It doesn't matter how old I get, I never tire of seeing things light up under a blacklight. Now, when you turn on a blacklight, what happens is the lamp emits ultraviolet light. This light exists just outside of the spectrum that we can see with our human eyes unaided. It's right between violet, we'll call it deep purple, and X-ray, right in that great middle ground. Now, when certain materials and pigments are exposed to UV light, what you see in the form of a glow is actually the electrons contained within being excited and giving off energy in the form of visible light. And this glow, or fluorescence, is what you're seeing when you look at the reactive ink of my Knight Rider t-shirt, or perhaps the enamel of my teeth. Even this pink Ernie Ball guitar cable lights up beautifully under blacklight, and that's the same reaction that you're seeing when you look at an old guitar finish under blacklight. Now, ultraviolet light is one of many tools we have to help us assess the originality and age of a piece, but it can't really do much more than tell you that a thing is old, or that a finish is complete, or that a finish has had wear, or repairs, things of that nature. Truly, ultraviolet light really is best at confirming or denying our suspicions. Simply put, it is one of many tools we have at our disposal to help us get a full picture of the life and livelihood of an instrument, and should only be used as such. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of my guitars, Pancake included, and we're going to see what we can learn just by viewing them under blacklight. Let's look at Pancake. Now, Pancake is a guitar that you are all too familiar with, I hope, at this point. It is a 1961 Fender Jazzmaster with a body date of 11/60 and a neck date of 2/61. Let's take a look at Pancake under blacklight and see what we can learn. Feel free to leave the answers in the comments as you're watching. I would love to know what it is that you might be seeing. First, you'll notice that the finish is indeed old. It's glowing the same uniform color all over, except in areas where I've worn it quite considerably. This includes areas where the wood is exposed. Wood obviously doesn't glow under blacklight, but also areas where my arms are making contact with the body, such as in that great yellow spot. You can see that that area isn't glowing because I've worn through many layers of finish. On the headstock, you can see that years of cigarette burns have left their mark indeed on the finish. Now, I want to draw your attention to the plastic on the body, and I think pretty quickly you'll be able to tell which of the plastic parts have been replaced. Did you figure it out? It's the switch tip. Now, Fender did indeed use amber switch tips right around the time that Pancake was produced. However, when I bought Pancake, it had the switch tip long gone at that point, so I found a repro and stuck it on there. It's lived there ever since 2012, and up close you can tell that it is starting to glow a little bit. It has aged and been played with, but it is not the original part. Ah, c'est la vie. Otherwise, the various areas of wear on the body are looking exactly as they should. Now let's move on to my Fender Jaguar. All right, my Jaguar's on the bench. Let me tell you a little bit about it. This is my 1963 Fender Jaguar with a 65A width neck, and it obviously has a few mods already done to it. Let's turn on the blacklight and make a few observations. Now, what do you see? Now, while the finish is indeed glowing, fans of the channel and my Instagram will know that this guitar has been completely refinished by Joe Riggio out of Tacoma, Washington, and it's in one of my favorite Fender colors, Charcoal Frost Metallic. Now, when Joe refinished this, I asked him to make the finish extremely thin so that I could toss it around and it would wear quickly. That's just what I wanted out of the guitar. And because the finish is so thin, you can actually see the wood grain through it. You can even see this poking through in normal light, but it is extremely pronounced with the black light involved. Now, this finish is only a few years old, but it is nitrocellulose and it is glowing pretty well. Now, while blacklight can't tell me exactly how old a finish is, by knowing the year of this guitar, I already know that Charcoal Frost wasn't available in '63. And obviously the fact that the guitar has been so heavily modified, well, if I were viewing this for the first time, this thing would be Red Flag City. Absolutely, 100%. Also worth noting is my playware. My pick scrapes and scratches are lit up like a Christmas tree on this finish, and you can see every single incursion into the finish that I have made, whether it is from normal strumming or behind the bridge play. That's just how I roll. And even the covers of the Curtis Novak 12 pickups I have installed in this guitar are starting to fluoresce naturally as they lose their glossy sheen from play. Now let's look at the headstock. What can you tell me? Now the headstock, it doesn't glow at all. It's certainly been refinished and recently as well. In nitrocellulose, of course, but it's not glowing at all. It is done in nitro by my friend Dan Michael over at Rawton Guitars. I desperately wanted this guitar to have a white headstock, and he helped me out with that. But because the finish is so new, it's not lighting up at all. I think it's only, 2 years old at this point? Now I'm going to shift the light around to the sides, and you're going to see something very interesting. Now, while the back of the neck is largely original, the sides of the neck have been oversprayed at the time that the headstock was finished, which is why you're seeing it light up in orange. That is indeed new finish covering up the old. And on the back of the headstock, you can see that there is a little bit of overspray, as well as buildup from years of play that happened before I got the neck. And all of that shows up under blacklight. And if you look at it in normal light, it's really hard to tell the difference between the original finish and the tinted new clear on top of it. If I were seeing this for the first time and I had my doubts about the headstock's originality, this would confirm my suspicions immediately. Let's move on to my Baritone. Now this is a guitar that's relatively new to me still. In fact, its birthday was on November 22nd. This is my Creston Lea built Baritone guitar. It is a 26 3/4 scale length baritone tuned B to B with a Death Star Mastery vibrato, Lawler pickups, and pickup selector switches that light up just like the lights on Darth Vader's chest panel in Star Wars. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about this guitar is that the inlays are phosphorescent, aka glow in the dark. This was something that I absolutely had to have when we were doing this project, and under blacklight, they light up just like an airport runway. Now, I've already spoiled it for you. This guitar is indeed new, but it is finished in nitro, so there is still a little bit of a glow to the finish. It's not as pronounced, but it is there. Because it's so new, there's really not a whole lot to say about the finish, but if you look really closely, you can indeed see where my right arm makes contact with the body while I'm strumming. You can see that that area is glowing differently. And, thankfully, the finish glows uniformly, so we can safely say that this is the original finish. So yeah, other than a few areas of wear, there really isn't a lot to say about this instrument. It is glowing just as I expect, but not very much at all. Let's move on to my 73 Precision Bass. All right, I've got my trusty 73 Precision Bass on the bench, and I want to know what you see. And again, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to know how you're interpreting what you're seeing on screen. So what do you think? Is it the original finish? Indeed, it is the original finish. This is as it left the factory in '73, albeit with quite a few more scrapes and dings and scratches and, yeah, a lot of finish missing. Knowing how worn it is, you might be thinking, wait, why is bare wood glowing? Well, that's because it's not actually bare wood. During this era of production, Fender finished its bodies in a clear poly sealer before applying a thin color coat. So what you're seeing in those areas where it looks like bare wood in normal light is actually that poly undercoat. It's glowing where it looks like the finish is worn off. To further punctuate the point, I'm going to turn it over so that you can see the difference between bare wood exposed by buckle rash on the back and the poly sealer layer. Also worth noting that the covers on the original pickup glow nicely as well. Now let's have a look at the headstock. Around the time this bass was made, Fender discovered that the poly finish used on the necks was reacting poorly with the decals, so the headstock face is finished in nitro while the rest of the neck is poly. That's why you see two distinctly different glows between the face of the headstock and the side of the neck. And that's also why there's an inconsistency on the side of the headstock, which could just be sloppy application at the factory level. Now you can see this in normal light, but the black light really makes that stand out. Also, this one's had a total refret, and doing so on a maple board usually necessitates a refin of the playing surface, which is why the fretboard itself glows a little bit differently from the back of the neck. Alright, to wrap up, let's move on to my Gibson acoustic. Now, this is my 1964 Gibson J50, one hell of an acoustic if I do say so myself. However, it has indeed seen its share of mistreatment over the years. Not from me, though, I promise you. Now, as you can see, this guitar has lots of wear, and you would know that even under normal light. There's no denying it. However, it does pop out even more so under black light because the wood just doesn't glow. It looks purple against the bright green tint of the finish. And even though most of what I'm going to tell you is totally obvious to the naked eye, I still want to show it to you so that you can see how repairs show up under blacklight. Now, the first thing you should know about this guitar is that the bridge has been replaced. In 1964, this guitar originally had the adjustable ceramic bridge, which was replaced with a Brazilian bridge and a fixed bone saddle. From this procedure, you can see the faint orange glow around the perimeter of the bridge, which is the telltale sign of heat treatment, which is used to release the glue joint. It's hardly visible under normal conditions. It is a little bit darker there, but under black light, you can really see it. And again, this is exactly how UV light can be used to help us paint a clearer picture of an instrument's life. I also want to point out that this guitar would originally have had a pick guard, which is long gone at this point. It was gone before I got the guitar. But if you look carefully, you can see the outline of where it was attached along the treble side of the body. Now let's look at the area around the neck joint. What do you see here? Finish repairs, right? Those little areas of discoloration around the perimeter of the neck? What that should tell you is that the neck has indeed had some repair, and in fact this has had a neck reset, so that would be your first clue. It's decent work, it's not perfect, it's more than adequate for the guitar as is, but it is there nonetheless. And again, you can see this under normal light because the finish has been lightly bursted there to hide some of the offending marks, but it's old enough that it doesn't really show up under black light. Moving on to the headstock, we can see that this is another one of my 3 guitars that has some cigarette burns on the headstock. Really extreme on this one, right next to the low E string. But otherwise, the finish of the headstock glows fairly consistent, and I know that it's original just based on knowing Gibson acoustics like I do. Now, flipping it over on the back, you are going to see perhaps the most obvious repairs in the world. That's right, those 3 lines running the length of the bass side of the back of the guitar, those are giant cracks that were there when I bought it. These cracks were open, chattering away as I played, and I needed the guitar for a gig that weekend. I think this was back in 2013. I had gigs coming up that weekend, theater gigs in fact, and I needed this guitar to be ready to go. So I repaired it as quickly as possible. It was one of those get it working, doesn't have to be pretty situations. To be honest, I just never got back around to it. This is not the way I want to leave this guitar, but it's been sturdy and solid this whole time, and I just haven't had the wherewithal to rip out my cleats and do it the proper way. And you know what? I may not get around to it ever. I've been meaning to send this guitar to Baxendale for some work because this guitar has always had really severe intonation issues, and I think that's because of an incorrect scale length. So I've been meaning to have him go over this guitar, and this has been something I've wanted for years, and the result of that is just me never really fixing the back of the guitar. So it is not pretty, but it's functional. In any case, I think I will be emailing Scott Baxendale as soon as possible to get this going. And with the J50 wrapped up, I think that about does it for this video. I do hope it's been informative for you, especially those of you who have maybe been mystified by what exactly we're looking for when we use UV light to check out a guitar. As I said before, UV is not foolproof, and it is certainly not the only tool that you should be using to accurately date or assess an instrument, but it can help reveal things not so easily seen by the naked eye. Anyway, thank you so much for coming back to the channel again and again, for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for subscribing. It does mean the world to me. I hope you're taking care of yourself and each other, and we'll see you in the next one.